Okay, on the same evening, 12th of April, 2026, the way that I start this one is going to be a little bit more phenomenological and direct. So right here, there's like a me and a you. And the dialogue, which I'm going to be sharing, mediates that and is sort of in between. But it speaks to that dialogue, speaks to and infuses listening that we participate in. It's a kind of dark, luminous, soft, hidden presence, like the ocean that's all around. And the dialogue speaks into us at that level. And I think it has the intention to do that. It's my intention participates in the intention of the dialogue, but I think the dialogue has a life of its own. I guess that's a kind of faith. But no, I don't think it's just faith. I think I recognize that in this kind of dialogue. And anyway, so what follows is going to be the way that the logos and now dialogos draws me and it's a way to hear Eliade or Eliade's ghost speak into us in a deep way. I'm going to be stumbling through that just as much as anyone else. From partway through chapter 3 in The Forge and the Crucible, the origins and structures of alchemy. He's been talking about our tendency to sexualize the world, to treat it in terms of the duality of male and female that is present in our myths. And so in this context, all it would be necessary to understand is that alchemical mode of perception and cognition facilitates transformation in terms of allowing us to participate alchemically in the world. And as is present here, there's a kind of identifying of one and the other, yin and yang. And beneath that and between that, there's a transformative process that we can speak into and bring into awareness, self-awareness. Eliade states, and I'm going to keep going here until I find stuff that I consider to be relevant. Apart from ores and metals, stones and precious stones have likewise been endowed with sex. The Mesopotamians divided them into male and female according to their shape, color, and brilliance. An Assyrian text translated by Boson speaks of, quote, the Musa stone, masculine in shape, and copper stone, feminine in shape. So he's giving an example. Boson, who's a guy, adds the information that the masculine stones had a more vivid color, while the feminine ones were rather pale. Which we see, by the way, in sexual selection in birds. Like, why should it be the case that the male peacock uh, is like so exuberant, right? While the the lesser known peahen is rather drab by comparison because it costs the male so much energy to show up like that. Quote, with the beginnings of Babylonian ritual writings, we find the same division for salts and ores, and this has been preserved in medical texts, the division into male and female. Quote, the sexual classification of ores and stones was maintained in the alchemical writings and lapidaries of the Middle Ages. The Judaicus, for example, is lapis judaicus, for example, is male or female. It's a Latin name for a stone, I guess. I'm going to continue. The Jewish mystic and exegete Baya ben Asher, sorry for that, wrote, quote, not only among palm trees do male and female exist, they exist among all vegetable species. And likewise, among minerals do we find the natural division between male and female. Just pausing to say that this is a kind of recognition that the division between male and female is built in very deeply to life itself. It's not the product of human projection to recognize that. I talked about the self-recognition of that which is alive, self-recognition of aliveness in some detail last time in relation to the beginning of the chapter. But as I continue, he says, quote, the sexuality of minerals is likewise mentioned by Sabati Donolov in the 10th century. Quote, the Arabian scholar, and he's just giving examples of people who also saw this. The Arabian scholar and mystic Ibn Sina, from 980 to 1037, declared that romantic love is not peculiar to the human species, but permeates all things, heavenly, elemental, vegetable, and mineral, and its sense is neither perceived nor known. Yeah, it's rendered even more obscure by the explanations made to account for it. So there's something, what that guy was pointing to was that there's something which is present right here, which we have a sense of, which is loving and which is alive. Again, like, so there's something metaphysical. There's a metaphysical quality to, you could say, love, but it's just like becomes a bit hallmarky, like a Hallmark card. But the important point there is that it's not just like recognizing, quote, sexuality or duality within nature. It's the self-recognition of the quality of aliveness and lovingness that is inherent to sexuality. It's a self-recognition of that as an existential that quality is an inherent aspect of anything which is of being. But as he said, that quality, that sense that we have for that is rendered more obscure when we attempt to explain it. It's not something that can be explained. Quote, the notion of romantic love applied to metals magnificently completes their animation, already ensured by the ideas of sexuality and marriage. So this mythology expresses a recognition of a kind of livingness, a kind of, it is a kind of alchemical, or you could say sexual. quality that infuses all things. And in mythology, we see that applied to metal. So think of, for example, think of a wedding ring. Like why? Why should we have a symbol, right, of something that is like the most sacred contract that we have? Why should the symbol for that be a metal ring? Because we see in metal itself, we recognize aliveness. Even though it's weird because it's like no, that we like scientifically would say no, that metal is like an inert object. It's dead, it's not living. But this is a more mythological way of thinking. An alchemical way of thinking, which sees aliveness in being, in life, in reality, including the metals which participate in that. Correct. Tools are likewise endowed with sex. Correct. What is the best weapon? Exclaimed the poet Ibn Erumi. Only a saber well sharpened, with its cutting edge male and its blade female. Again, so we see this like yin and yang, male and female, wholeness and division quality. Correct. The Arabs call hard iron man and soft iron woman. He gives more examples as follows. The smiths of Tanganyika make several kinds of holes in the kiln. The widest bears the name of mother. Correct. It's through this that at the end of the operation of roasting, you'll bring out dross, slag, roasted ore, etc. The opposite hole is the isi, the father. To this, they will attach one of the best bellows. The intermediaries, these like the intermediary holes in the kiln, are the ana, the children. So this is kind of, you could say, well, it does seem to me like a kind of projection, but it's more like we design that quality of being into the objects that we create. But I'll just like push through this part so I can get to something that I feel is more relevant. Eliade goes on, quote, the European metallurgical terminology, sorry, in European metallurgical terminology, the kiln where enameled material was smelted was designated by the name of matrix or maternal bosom. The comparison of human work in which fire was used, for example, metallurgy, forging, or cooking, the comparison of that with the growth of the embryo inside the mother still survives obscurely in European vocabulary. For example, the German word, which is Mutterkuchen, placenta. This is like, it means, like, think of the connection between placenta and play center. It's connected also to kindergarten. It was against a mental background such as this that beliefs were crystallized concerning fertilizing and gynecological stones and rainstones. Now I have to try and work out what sense to make of that. Yeah, so the way of making sense of it is to apply it again to like this situation right here, what's happening right now. And in a way, like I know he was giving examples that are like from long ago and that are quite strange, that just seem to be like a projection of sexuality upon the objects that we create. But it's about more than that. And so, for example, like he was talking about how there's one aspect of that which is happening right now that is our human work that we're doing, such as one might do if one is forging or cooking or doing metallurgy. There's a creative smithing alchemical process which is happening now. But there's another aspect of the same process that could be talked about as the kind of growth of an embryo inside the mother, which is more it's more embryonic, it's in a state of genesis or conception, and it's more tentative, fragile, childlike, and playful in a word. And so um, when we there's a kind of self-recognition of those different aspects of the same process that is happening now, and that a nascent form of that self-recognition leads into the beliefs that we used to have and the projections that we used to make about like seeing sexuality in things and seeing the family in things that we design because we design that about ourselves into them. That's the best that I'm able to do to make sense of what Eliade is saying. It's like he's pointing to these deep mythological structures that those structures themselves, as expressed time and time again in many different parts of the world, like why? Why should we believe such nonsense? Well, because it points to an aspect of what's happening right now. And when we actually end up doing metallurgy or forging or cooking, we're just expressing that in a more explicit and sort of exact, practical way. There's a kind of self-recognition, alchemical self-recognition, which is before that practicality. So what I'm going to do is attempt to get through the rest of the chapter here. So I'm going to, with that, continue. Eliade states, and again, it's like difficult, right? So I'm going to try and do the same thing. He says, when there is a heavy fall of rain, the Dyaks, who again are a people, know that it is masculine. He's giving examples of the same kind of thinking, right? Quote, as for cosmic waters, the book of Enoch divides them up thus, quote, the upper water will fill the role of man, the lower that of woman. It's to stop because a moth just like flew on my face. But the point I was making is that like imagine experience the world phenomenologically for a minute. Well, if you go up, rain falls from the sky, and if you dig down, you find water in the earth. And some of these yeah, traditions, peoples, that again we apply the same way of thinking. Like one of them must be male and one of them must be female. Quote, a well fed by a stream symbolizes the union of man and woman. That's in the Zohar, which is again a text. Quote, it gives other examples of the same thing. In Vedic India, the sacrificial altar or Vedi was looked upon as female and the ritual fire, Agni, as male, and their union brought forth offspring. Quote, we are in the presence of a very complex symbolism, which cannot be reduced to a single plane of reference. So he's talking about something which is beneath the individual cultures and individual objects, which gave expression to that uh, complex mythological symbolism, that mythological motif. And I'm trying to talk about that as well, but it's difficult. He says, for on the one hand, the Vedi, which is this, again, sacrificial altar from Vedic India, was compared to the navel of the earth, the symbol par excellence of the center. But the Nabi, which was the navel, yeah, was also established as being quote, the womb of the goddess. Okay, so it's a little tricky here, but like basically what we're getting at is that if, for example, in Vedic India, there were these sacrificial altars or Vedi, and they represent or symbolize something. They symbolize this quality of being at the center. So they're like the belly button of the earth. But it's not just that, it's also that they're also connected with being a kind of womb. It's a kind of they're connected. Well, how do I put that? Yeah, so the way that I put it was that the symbolism associated with the navel and the womb are like a circle with a dot in the middle. And the thing is that the navel, that dot in the middle, and is different from the womb, which is like the symbol of a womb would be like a circle, like at a very, very basic level, right? And the thing is that this kind of symbolism of the mother or the womb, the goddess, the navel, it can be both aspects of that symbol. So, for example, the aspect of this mythological complex, which is the navel, is there's the dot in the center, but the aspect of this mythological complex, which is the womb, is the circle that surrounds it. And it's like both at the same time. I would connect this with axis mundi, and it's a kind of umbilical cord. So this is kind of the feminine side of that symbolism as expressed in the form of sacrificial altar in Vedic India. But he also said, on the other hand, fire itself was looked upon as the result or the progeny of a sexual union, and it was born as a result of the to and fro motion of a stick, like in a notch made upon a piece of wood. So what he's talking about is literally like making fire, you know, and it's difficult. He said we are in the presence of a very complex symbolism, which which cannot be reduced to a single plane of reference. The only point that I would make here is again to try and draw out how this connects with our present moment experience. As in, there's something here which serves in the same place as the navel or the womb. There's something which is acted upon, or you could say infused, or you could say fertilized, but I wouldn't. And then there's something which is making the fire, right? Which is that which is in motion or that which is acting upon it. And we see this kind of symbolism, like literally, like in Vedic India, like built into the objects of worship that they were using and so on. And this kind of symbolism shows up time and time again. Well, why? Because it speaks to something deeply true, deeply real about this moment, this experience that we are having. Quote, the same sexual symbolism of fire is found in a number of, quote, primitive societies. So I'll keep going here. Again, it's just to say that there's in that symbolism, there's there's one party, and then there's another, and then there's that which is between them, and it's that process which is trying to be discussed. Quote, but all these sexual terms, or I would say dualistic terms in a sense, convey a cosmological conception with a hierogamous base. Or if I try to translate Eliade into something vaguely renderable, what he's talking about is that this kind of terminology, this way of perceiving in terms of the sexual duality, let's say, it's the kind of terminology that when enacted, when it's lived, it can give birth to a world. It's involved in the creation or genesis of the world in a it's hard to say exactly what I mean by that because we're already in the world, right? But it's a mode of transformation that can be world transforming, not just transforming of who we are, but of who we are in the world. And like that's what he means by cosmological conception. There's a way that it gives birth to, can give birth to, give rise to a new self-understanding, a new kind of self-recognition of what is. It's just not enough to talk about just self-realization in that. You also have to talk about giving birth to a world. It's a new self-recognition of that which is self and world together. It's not just about us within that world. It's less anthropocentric and more, quote, cosmocentric. And by having a hierogamous base, what he means by that is that that transformative process has as its kind of foundation the sacred marriage between, well, it's between male and female, really, but it can be between any two, in my humble opinion. So hierogamous literally means derived from hierogamy, which is like holy, sacred, and marriage. And by marriage, in like I'm it's gonna be taken the wrong way, right? But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a kind of transformative process that we can participate in, whoever we are, because we're literally all in this together. So one way of taking this would be that all of humanity, the collective consciousness of humanity, is one half of a relationship with the earth, the world, Mother Nature. And that relationship that we have is, well, you could say it's sacred, but it's more like it's also an existential condition. It's that which we are, and we're tied, we're joined irrevocably just by virtue of being alive. Quote, it is from a center or navel that the creation of the world starts. And in solemnly imitating this primary model, every construction, every fabrication must operate from a starting center. So I'm attempting to enact this process that gives rise to not a construction or a fabrication, but a revealing, or you could say an aletheic unveiling for the Heideggerians among us, of a new kind of self-disclosure or self-recognition of who and what we really are. And there's a way that that has to begin from a center point. It's from a center, it's from a certain point that the creation of the world begins. And we, if we can come to imitate that, it's a certain kind of that aspect of it is a model, but like as in something to imitate. And so what he's describing here is actually the proper kind of ritual or narrative container for tool making. Like any construction or fabrication, any kind of creation has to proceed from that central point, the starting point. So Eliade is talking about a world creating process that is ritually reenacted. Literally throughout human history, we've been expressing this mythological complex that is very deep to our experience of being alive. As he says, the ritual production of fire reproduces the birth of the world, which is why at the end of the year, all fires are extinguished, a reenactment of the cosmic night, and rekindled on New Year's Day. This is an enactment of the cosmogony, the rebirth of the world. So literally like on New Year's Eve, you know how everyone like lets off a bunch of fireworks? Well, like why do we do that? It's odd. It's very odd. It's a symbol of the rebirth of the world. Quote, for all this, fire does not lose its ambivalent character. It's either of divine or demonic. It is either of divine origin or demoniac. For according to certain primitive beliefs, it's engendered magically in the genital organ of the sorceress. We shall return to the subject of this ambivalence before dealing with the marvels associated with the smith. As I continue here right on through the rest of the chapter. Actually, I might again divide this up because I kind of did 3 pages, right? And I don't like putting too much in one go, so Bye.